Hello and welcome to another episode of the Top 8 Podcast. I'm Matt Batiste.
And I'm your co-host, TJ, as always.
And today's going to be a fun one because it's probably going to be the hardest one that we've done so far considering our brand. We are picking out our top 8 best pop punk albums from 1999 to 2009.
Yeah, originally we said 2000 to 2009, like the 2000s, but there was an album from 1999 that I thought had to be on this list, so we made an adjustment.
So here's the thing. The thing is, too, is like 99 is basically the 2000s.
Yeah. It's an album that was appreciated in the 2000s. If you had a 98, 97 in there, whatever.
It's a shoulder year, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if an album came out in 99, it's not a 90s album, it's a 2000s album. It's the same thing with 89. It's a 90s album.
Agreed.
You know, it's those weird shoulder years where if it came out a few months later, then it would count towards that next decade, right? So, I don't know. I think that 99 is a good sort of lap and layover.
Exactly. I'm going to...
We have the cat with all of our recording equipment. Cat was like, I disagree with everything Matt is saying. 1999 is a 90s year. Fuck you, Matt.
Yeah, he really hated that. You want to kick things off with your number 8, though?
Yes. Let me pull it up here. All right. Number 8. I have Fall Out Boy from Under the Cork Tree.
Nice. That's a great pick. Yeah.
A little part of me was unsure because with this list, I think in my head, I was kind of debating a little bit about what albums should and shouldn't be on here because of the whole, you know, classifying things as pop punk versus emo, right? So like there's some 2000s albums that I wanted to add because maybe there was like a blurred line between pop punk and emo. But I didn't. And then other ones where it just felt like they were more clear pop punk albums. And I know that Fall Out Boy kind of blurs the lines between emo and pop punk, but I feel like Cork Tree is like a pretty standard pop punk album.
I would classify it as a pop punk album. Yep. I will say it's going to come up a little later on. I'll tell you where. But I couldn't agree more about this record.
Absolutely. So what do you have on your number 8 spot?
All right, my number 8 is a bit of a controversial take, but I wasn't really sure where to put this because this band, I don't think of them as a pop punk band, but they perfectly fused pop punk with breakdown. So I'm giving my number 8. I'm giving my number 8 to Homesick because it's not necessarily a pop punk album, but it is probably the best pop punk with breakdowns albums.
I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
I think we had this discussion beforehand a little bit. You were like, you know, where is the line with being a pop punk album?
They're not the band I think of when I would say pop punk records. I'm not immediately going to a Day to Remember. But it's like, if you don't put them here, where do you put them? I'm not going to put them on a metalcore list. Do you put them on a post-hardcore list? I'm not really sure. So I just wanted to give the nod because, in my opinion, Homesick is one of the best albums of all time and needed to be at least mentioned.
I can respect that just because I don't know where to put a Day to Remember either.
Like even when we did the OurSpace Madness, I was like, where do you put them? Do you put them in pop punk, metalcore, post-hardcore, emo? They're kind of a bit of everything. So
yeah, I think that's fair. I think you can add it. I didn't put them on there because they didn't feel like a clear-cut pop punk band, and that could have just been me getting into my head. But like, I mean, I respect the pick and I like the pick. It's a perfect album.
Agreed.
It come out in 2009?
2009, yeah.
So like, just missed that cutoff of this album as well. Maybe that's another reason why I didn't include it on mine. I don't know. I didn't include it on mine, but it definitely belongs on a top 8 list because it's a really good album.
If you don't put it on the list, it has to be at least a strong honorable mention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, what you got at 7?
7, I have Paramore's Riot.
Ooh, okay.
So Paramore's Riot, like I put this one up here just even though it's not my favorite Paramore album. Just because.
Okay, what's your favorite Paramore album, real quick?
Yeah, my favorite Paramore album is actually their debut album.
Really?
Yeah. It's just, it was the time, right? Like seeing performances from Hayley Williams and hearing their songs, and I think it was Pressure that got me into Paramore.
Great song.
And yeah, like I became a huge Paramore fan from there, and like she was probably still is my biggest like celebrity crush. Like love Haley, Queen Haley.
We are all there. Don't worry.
But I don't think there's much of an argument that needs to be made there. But I had to put Riot on there because it's also a perfect album, and I think it just gets more attention. So like while it's not my favorite one, I think it's most people's favorite one. It's perfect. It's iconic. And like Paramore needs to be on this list. So I decided to put Riot there just instead of my favorite album, just because of the significance that Riot has like for the genre.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. When I was preparing my list, I immediately thought of Riot first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started revisiting Paramore a little bit more. And I put a different album on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's not. It'll come up a little
It's
later.
not number 7. It's number 1.
It's not number 1. It's not number 7. But Riot, honestly, like going back to it, it has some of the biggest hits.
Mm-hmm.
But it also kind of loses me towards the back half.
Okay.
Where like I think it's a little front loaded, and I think another album is more consistent all the way through.
Where do you kind of lose off? Like, because I mean, really, it's like Crush, 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 incredible song.
Yeah, and then after that, I don't really listen to anything after that. Even before that, I'm only really listening to like Misery Business and the first couple songs before that.
Fair. All We Know Is Falling is definitely my favorite. Is that on your list? Is that the one?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it was just like
I got into Paramore after this was already out, so like I went back and I enjoyed it, but it didn't hold the same weight for me as another album did.
Okay, I'm gonna guess it's their self-titled then.
It's not.
Brand New Eyes?
That's from 2013. Yeah, it's Brand New Eyes.
Okay, we'll figure out where you put it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But I think it's just so consistent all the way through. Like again, I didn't think of it first, but from start to finish, it's got pop punk anthems and it's got a lot of heart. Yeah, and I just really enjoy it. So,
what do you have at number 7?
Number 7, I have no pads, no helmets, just balls. Simple Plan.
Okay,
I had to give the shout out to Simple Plan. I've seen them a couple times live. They put on a phenomenal performance. This is like the embodiment of everything I talked about with I'm Just a Kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we did our lyrics episode. I think it's that kind of vibe throughout the entire record.
Yeah.
Great songs. I Do Anything. Addicted, of course. It's just.
It's a pop punk classic and staple for sure.
For sure. Well, Canadian representation too. Matt's number 6.
All right. Number 6 for me, I have Bleed American, Jimmy Eat World.
Jimmy Eat World. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This Good one, pick. I think, was another one that just made the cut at 99.
Oh, yeah. I know. I think it's like 2000, 2001.
Or is it? What do you think about? Let's maybe we cut this out. Jimmy Eat World. I remember I had to Google what year it was because Jimmy Eat World is like, to me, they're like a 90s band.
Yeah.
And because they're kind of in that second wave of emo. But Bleed American, yeah, 2001.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So for Bleed American, for me, I just don't go back and listen to it all the way through. Listen to the middle, listen to whatever the sweetness, thank you.
And then Bleed American, of course.
And then Bleed American, yeah. But those are like the only 3 songs. So I just I didn't even consider it when I was making my list.
Jimmy Eat World is one of those bands where like they're just always going to be the epitome of like pop punk or emo for me. Like I know like the thing is too is like they're like a weird band that's also hard to classify. Like are they an emo band? Yeah, they're definitely an emo band, but like they have some albums and some eras and some songs that are just like they're kind of like indie rock and they're like some songs are like pop punk. And so it's just kind of like, where do I put them? And I feel like this was almost like my A Day to Remember, where I was just kind of like, it's hard to kind of fit them in somewhere, but also this album was like a pretty solid pop punk and like emo album. And I was just like, yeah, we're going to put this in here because it needs to be on one of these lists and it needs the respect.
That's fair. For me, Jimmy Eat World was the same kind of vibe as the Killers. They had a couple honorary emo bangers, but I don't usually consider them as part of like the emo scene.
I would never put the Killers into the emo scene. I think most emo kids loved the singles from the Killers, but like Jimmy Eat World is an emo band.
Okay.
Like they're like full out like an emo band. Like I would definitely classify them as
just my perception of them, I think. I don't know, maybe I have to go back and revisit some more.
Yeah, 100%. You got to
change
go
that.
back and listen to some Jimmy Eat World because they definitely fall into that emo category for sure.
Okay.
They're more of like that like second wave emo. And they kind of, you know, bleed into the pop punk a little bit, into like indie rock. Like they kind of like bleed across genres. They definitely fit into the emo genre for sure though.
Gotcha.
But like the Killers are like an Americana rock band.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
But like I can see how you can kind of like mentally put them there because you're like, oh, they have a few hits that really like did well with that third wave emo crowd. But like it depends. You were either really into Jimmy Eat World or you weren't.
Yep. For
You
sure.
know?
I just wasn't.
Yeah, and everybody loves the singles. Like they're one of those bands where it's like they've got the sweetness and they've got the middle, and like everybody knows and loves those songs, whether you're a part of the genre, a part of the scene, or any of that, because they just had such major global mainstream success.
Yeah.
But then if you're like really into them and you're like listening to their albums, like yeah, they deserve that nod. Like they're one of the best.
Good to
So
know.
I had to put them on there.
Makes sense. That was your number 6?
Yeah, that was my number 6.
My number 6 is this is where I put From Under the Cork Tree. And
Okay.
from here on out, this is where I consider all these albums to be masterpiece pop punk albums.
Mhm.
Like, there's nothing you can say that's wrong with From Under the Cork Tree. It's just like a great album from front to back. They got the long ass song titles, and just great music.
Yeah. It's one of those. It's that album that got everybody into Fall Out Boy. Let's be real.
For sure, yeah.
You know, like I feel like most
we talked about this
people.
within the sophomore album. This is like one of my favorite
Mhm.
sophomore albums of all time. It really hooked me on Fall Out Boy.
I think most people got into it from this album and then went back to the
Take
other
This to Your
album. Yeah,
Grave.
Take This to Your Grave.
Yep.
And then maybe Take This to Your Grave beat some people out, and they're like, "Oh, I like to Take This to Their Grave," or maybe people were just lying about that so they can look cool and be like, "Yeah, I listened to them from their first album."
It's probably a
But,
bit of that.
Yeah, but let's be real. Cork Tree is the album for me.
It is the album. And I'm hoping that that's the album that gets played at When We Were Young.
I don't think they're playing an album. Period.
You don't think that
No,
they're going to do it?
I think they're going to go. I think they're the only band at When We Were Young that's going to be just play whatever they want.
Interesting.
I feel like they're the only band that's big enough to be able to say, no, we're doing things our way.
You think they're bigger than My Chem?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think in the emo world, My Chem is bigger, but I think in the mainstream world, Fall Out Boy is definitely bigger. They've got more of those
They do have that
mainstream success. They've got
Like
the songs
Phoenix
that have,
and the like you hear that shit at like the arena before hockey.
they have more
kids come out.
songs on like movies and TV shows, on
Yeah.
video games. Like they've got major commercial success. Like I know people that straight up only listen to pop music and they love Fall Out Boy and they don't care for My Chemical Romance. Like Fall Out Boy is a popular pop band that started out as like a pop punk emo band, but like they've just grown so much bigger than that and bigger than the genre that they're their own. Whereas like My Chem will always be like an emo band, you know?
That's fair. I'm trying to think of like other bands that I think would be bigger that would maybe do that. But even like I think
it's like a Blink-182.
Well, I think Blink-182 is probably
Mhm.
bigger than Fall Out Boy, but I think that they would also commit to a record. So it's interesting, like that dynamic of like, I wonder what that conversation was of, oh yeah, we're not just gonna pick a record. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
So I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but my thinking is Fall Out Boy said, we don't want to do a record. We
Yeah.
want to play our hits.
For sure.
So, and you know what? I'm not going to complain about that because the thing is they also have so many hits that it's like, yeah, I know that Cork Tree is my favorite, but I still want to hear a couple of hits from Take This to Your Grave. Like I still want to hear a couple of other hits that aren't on Cork Tree.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a give and take, really.
For sure.
I'm not mad at that one. But number 5, you're going to start to see a theme here when it comes to 2000s pop punk. I have Boxcar Racers album.
Oh, here comes the Blink everything. I was curious if you were gonna have this one and then like the big 3 Blink albums. So we'll just see what comes up. But
We'll see what comes up. I definitely, so like I know we kind of discussed about doing honorable mentions and whatnot. I'm gonna give like an honorable mention alongside this one to Plus 44's record.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like Boxcar's record is one of my favorite records of all time.
Okay.
Like I think it is perfect. I think that I honestly think that this Boxcar record is better than majority of Blink's work.
Really?
Like this Boxcar record it's unreal.
It's a bold statement.
So it's like, yeah, like I thought that I think that it's one of the best records. And yeah, shout out to Plus 44 because that record was fantastic too. When Tom first started Angels and Airwaves, that record was all right, but like Boxcar is definitely the best Blink side project.
I would agree
and
with that. Yeah.
and those I think some of the songs on that album hit harder than a lot of Blink songs. You know,
All right.
there is I feel
your
so,
take.
and I like all of these songs are better than like 80% of Blink's discography. Yeah.
I'm going to be a hard disagree, but
Yeah, you can disagree with me. That's fine. But I'm like, you got to think too, like Blink has a large discography. Like
yeah,
hit for hit, maybe not, but I don't want to like give away what my other albums are that are going to be on this list.
When did this record come out again? 2000 and
the exact year, Boxcar Racer year. 02.
Okay, so this was between Toy Patch and the Untitled record. So you're like prime era of Blink. We're getting this record too.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately it's going to be better than like everything pre-Enema in my opinion.
Yep. 100%. Immediately it's better and that's why I'm saying like it's better than anything on Buddha, better than anything on Cheshire Cat, better than anything. Well, Dude Ranch has Damn It, but like I still think that Boxcar Racer has more emotion in their songs, so it'd still put it better over Damn It. And then it's Enema of the State, which is another perfect album. Like Enema of the State, Take Off Your Pants, and Self-Titled, in my opinion, are the three like albums from.
Those are the big three.
Those are the big three. But then like look at how much else look at all of the other albums that they have. Like Boxcar Racer is better than anything off of Neighborhoods, California, 9. Honestly, even One More Time, and I like that album.
Oh, I love that album.
But like Boxcar Racer, just it's that album.
Okay.
So there you go. My hot takes that may be pissing people off. But I think more people are going to agree with me than you would think.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. My number 5, then this is where I put Brand New Eyes.
Okay.
Front to back, I think this thing is incredible. Like opens with Careful, great song. Ignorance is like probably one of their biggest songs. Brick by Boring Brick, one of their biggest. The Only Exception holds a special place in my heart. It was involved in When I Proposed. That was one of the songs I was playing. And then All I Wanted, the last song in the album, is one of my favorite songs of all time. Like, regardless of genre, anything. It's got that like build and then it just like crashes. I don't know. There's something about it.
When it hits that all I wanted was
yes, exactly. I had it on like the Breakup albums episode that we did. I think it just hits. It hits me. And then the rest of the record is great. So I don't think there's anything to say bad about this record.
No, and anyone that has something to say bad about this record, we're going to take that personally. I'm taking that personally. We're fighting after this is done recording or after you're done listening.
Take it outside.
Yeah, we're meet me in the parking lot if you have anything bad to say about Paramore, period. Number 4, I have Does This Look Infected? I feel like now we're kind of getting into the top tier of like the 2000s pop punk gods. You know, it was really like, I think the top 3 bands for me were Blink, Green Day, and some.
Yep, that makes sense.
So now we're kind of getting into that tier. Does This Look Infected? I was kind of like debating a little bit between Does This Look Infected and Chuck.
Really? Okay, before making mine, I originally had All Killer No Filler on mine, and then I swapped it out at the end.
Okay.
But that is my Sum 41 album.
Yeah, and I think it's always been All Killer, or Does This Look Infected? And like, I know that the thing is for me, like All Killer, No Filler has Fat Lip, obviously big one, Motivation, Into Deep. Like, but like those are the 3, and maybe Pain for Pleasure.
Yeah.
Those are like the 3, but I don't know. Does This Look Infected for me I think I just had more like personal connection to like the Hell Song and Over My Head and like the whole album. I know there's not really as many big singles on this album.
Well, the Hell Song and Still Waiting are probably just as big as like that's like the In Too Deep and the Fat Lip
of this record. And I just feel like when I put on both records, from start to finish, Does This Look Infected? I like more of like the B-sides and the deeper tracks than I like the B-sides and deeper tracks of All Killer.
That's fair. I eventually took some off of mine because I think they have a perfect set list.
Mm-hmm.
They have 20 songs that they can play, and I'm going to be hyped about every single one of them. But they've never been like, I constantly go back to one of the records more than the others. I'm just like, I love the hits.
They have
love their set
amazing
list.
singles and not many like albums, if I'm saying like, I think, but also like
not that the albums are bad. It's just like when you have singles that are so massive, it's hard to make anything that compares to those.
Yeah, because their other stuff is more like deep cuts, you know, and it feels like deep cuts. Like they were like, let's put out the bangers and then let's put in the stuff that we want to do.
I just didn't want this to come off like I was hating on their records. It's just like their singles are so massive that the rest of the albums almost pale in comparison because they're so damn good.
The funny thing is I think looking back, Chuck probably is their best album as a whole.
I know, you've said this before, and it's crazy take.
I think like as a whole, in terms of like bangers and singles and consistency, the whole album, Chuck is their best album. But the only reason why I didn't put it in there is because it took me a lot longer to like really appreciate the album. And like it didn't have the like big 2000s bangers like the Fat Lip or the Still Waiting. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I'm going to go with Does This Look Infected instead of Chuck, even though I do think Chuck probably is their best album. And who knows, maybe we should have put Chuck, or I should have put Chuck on my list instead and just been like honest to myself.
But here we are.
Here we are. Trying to please other people.
Oh my God.
I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah, me too. But my number 4 is American Idiot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, I've always thought of Green Day as the punk band with an amazing pop punk era. And this album is like a near perfect. I mean, for me, again, I've said before, all of these albums are basically perfect. Perfect Homecoming, or perfect pop punk record. Iconic songs, American Idiot, Jesus Suburbia, Holiday. I mean, what else? Like, it's
it's a whole, that album is like a journey, right? Like from start to finish, it 100% is. It's like
it has a message. It like, I don't know, it delivers on everything that it wants to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was like, I think a little bit too polished for me, especially we've had this conversation
coming
before.
From like classic Green Day.
And I have another Green Day album on my list. But
really?
we will talk about that shortly.
From 2000 to 2009?
Oh, I didn't double check my years on this one.
Because if it's the record I'm thinking of, it's from 1994.
Oh, okay, then yeah, it's 100%. I put the wrong one on here. Yeah, no, I have American Idiot too.
Yeah, no, you were gonna say Dookie?
Yeah, I was gonna say Dookie, but like I didn't double check the years. So I was just kind of like going through my playlists of like bands that I consider to be 2000s bands, and I always forget that Green Day was like a 90s band. Early. Because like Green Day got that attention in like the 90s, and they were the first band, you know, within that scene to really like sign to, well, I guess kind of Rancid, but like then Green Day did that, signed to a label, and then they were branded as sellouts and got kicked out of Gilman Street and all, you know. I think we don't need to get into the history of the band. I think most people kind of know about that, especially if you're a big fan.
Yeah.
But like I associate Dookie and all of that, I think because of my era of growing up and the time that I was growing up in the 2000s, I associate that with the 2000s because before, like I remember the day that American Idiot came out. So like,
yeah,
I was listening to Green Day in the early 2000s and they were playing Green Day music videos in the early 2000s that like, I forget that Green Day was a 90s band and that they had this whole like, you know, punk era before. Cause for me, it was Dookie, and then, you know, listen to their older stuff that was a little bit punkier, but I'd classify Dookie as a pop punk album. And so I did have Dookie on my list. So I goofed on Googling the years and just messing that up.
That's okay.
So we're going to pivot, and I'm going to change my list on the spot, and I'm just going to put American Idiot at number 3 and agree with you.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. One other thing.
And we're going to completely void any thought of me thinking that Dookie was a 2000s album when it really came out in the 90s.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Cut.
I remember I did a trip out west to see my grandma who lived out there at the time. And I brought only a couple CDs with me, and American Idiot was one of them. And I like just burned through that CD. Like I had my Walkman, had the CD, and like I would just like on or repeat over and over. And I don't know, I just came to really love it. And I know we've had this conversation a couple times now with the Bullet in the Bible live performance thing. I just fell in love with this record. Can't get enough.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put that in my number 3 too, and we're gonna avoid Dookie, which was originally my number 2.
So I wonder what your top 3 are gonna be.
No, that would be my third then, because
third.
I had Dookie at number 2.
Oh, right, okay.
And then we were going into 3, and I said, no, can Dookie. We'll put American Idiot at number 3 and bump my number 3 up to 2.
Okay.
Because I do like this album way better than American Idiot.
Okay.
Enema of the State.
That's my number 3.
That's your number 3.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you have at 2 and 1? I thought we were on your 2.
We're gonna find out. No, that was my Green Day was my number 4. Yeah, Enema is like, I don't know. Did you want to say anything?
No, you go ahead, because now I'm trying to catch up, and I'm more interested in you putting this low. I thought it was going to be your number 1.
No, I have long been another Blink album above Enema. But then there's another record that I don't think you're considering along the pop punk genre because it's way more emo, but it's like emo pop punk. And that's my number 2. But but for Enema, the only reason, so it's so hard to talk about without giving away my number. The other
your other album is going to be self-titled.
No,
or
it's
untitled.
Not. It's Toy Patch. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket is my favorite Blink record.
Okay,
easily.
Okay, I agree with you. I actually like Take Off Your Pants and Jacket more than Enema, but I put Enema on my list at that high and didn't put Take Off Your Pants and Jacket because I have another Blink album that's on there. I didn't want my whole list to just be Blink, and I feel like Enema of the State is just a bigger album, like for the genre, than Take Off Your Pants and Jacket was, which is why I put Enema there. Or else, honestly, like I can go and revise my whole list, and like all my top things would just be Blink projects.
That's what I kind of thought your top 3 was just going to be Untitled, Enema, and then
realistically, like if we want to do Blink albums, I'll tell you right now, my Blink albums are Untitled, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, Enema, and then I'm going into Boxcar Racer plus 44, and then I'll go into like Dude Ranch, and then I'll
really
like, and then. Yeah, that's my like list of Blink projects. But
Untitled is 3, or actually no, now it's Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, Enema, One More Time, Untitled, and then honestly, I really liked California, and it's up there for me.
You're putting One More Time over Untitled?
Yes.
You're insane.
No, I'm not.
You are absolutely nuts. Like, there's no way that you think that One More Time, Untitled is their best album.
It's not, though.
How old were you when it came out? Because this is, I think, an age difference, too. Because, like...
You're older than me.
I know, but, like, I don't know.
03.
Yeah.
I would have been 10.
I was 12. So that was like, I don't know. That was pivotal, man. Like that was their best out. That was when they really sort of started to shift from like just silly pop songs into like pop songs with emotion in there. Like honestly, like that album is kind of like an emo album.
It's more emo. That's the thing. But I'm like, I want silly, funny, goofy Blink.
But it was still kind of in there.
I know it's in there, but it's not like I'm like feeling this. I Miss You, Down. Always, and then I don't really listen to the rest of the record.
Violence,
it's like, fine.
I'm so
always
mad right
is
now.
Also fine, but it's not like it's not in my top 10, like even my top 20 of Blink songs at all.
You're fucked.
No, I'm not.
Okay, but
Dude,
I think that's where the split is. The split is you're either into like emotional Blink or silly Blink, and the thing is silly Blink gets old after a while. Like, emotional Blink will never get old. Like feeling this will never get old. No matter how many, you can play it on repeat a million times over. But what's my age again? It's kind of on the precipice. Like if I hear it on the radio or like if I hear it live, I'm gonna sing every single word. But if it comes up on a playlist, there is a possibility I skip it. There is a 0% possibility I skip Feeling This or I Miss You or Violence or Down or any of those songs.
So Toy Patch was like the transition record for me from like extremely goofy Blink into
Mhm.
like taking themselves very seriously Blink.
Yeah, it was that bridge album for
So
sure.
that's why it's my number one. Like you get Sadness and Stay Together for the
You
Kids.
Stay Together for the Kids is an emotional song. That's where they
Yeah.
started bridging that gap.
But then you also have like First Date and Rock Show, which are like just like the funny, goofy first
Mhm.
album Blink. And then songs like Every Time I Look for You, like I just love that song. I don't know. They still had like the goofiness, like Happy Holidays, You Bastard. Is like
Yeah. Like I will say
um
this, like I put Enema on there because I think that Enema was a bigger album for the band and I think it was a bigger album for the genre. And you know me, I like to mix the my personal taste with the weight of what it's done for the band and for the music scene and industry and genre and all of that. So that made my decision, but I also don't even own Enema on vinyl. I own Take Off Your Pants and Jacket.
really okay.
Yeah. Because Take Off Your Pants and Jacket is my favorite album. Like between those two, I only reason why I don't have Untitled is because I can't fucking find it anywhere. And the one time I did find it, it was like a record store that had it in Halifax, and they wanted like over $200 for it, and you needed to buy it in person. They wouldn't ship.
Oh
And I
damn.
was like, oh, because they got it like used, like someone just brought it in and sold it to them. And so I guess they kind of flipped it, and I was like, oh, I wish I was in Halifax.
Damn. Okay, I do want to have a quick conversation about One More Time. I think it's probably a bit of a recency bias because it's very new,
Mhm.
but with Tom coming back from the band, and I listened to this record probably 3 times on the way to When We Were Young to
Yep.
see them play,
Mhm.
that now when I listen to it, I have like that such strong emotion
I
connected to that like trip, that event, like, and I cried watching the One More Time music video. It hit me so hard where like the rest of the album could have been shit, and I don't think it's shit, but
Mhm.
like I'm still so happy to have Blank back.
I'm happy too, and I definitely got choked up. I got choked up 2 nights in a row when we were young watching them perform. I think also there's like an emotional connection that I have to this band as well because I don't know if I've really talked about this like publicly, but like my cousin and I grew up like brother and sister. Like we were super close, and she got me into a lot of the like pop punk and emo music before I got into it. Like she really like she was on Blink 182, Sum 41, Billy Talent, like all these bands, and introduced a lot of them to me. And so we would go to shows together. And like I said, we grew up really, really close. And she passed away in her 20s,
Damn.
tragically. And
Sorry to hear that.
and like Blink was her favorite band of all time. So now when I love Blink already on my own, but now when I hear Blink, I have that like
Emotional connection.
special emotional
That's fair.
connection to that because of this special emotional connection to a person that I have. So like, you know,
That's
and that I
very
lost.
understandable.
So like seeing them in May on their stadium tour and then seeing them 2 nights in a row at When We Were Young, like I was getting choked up because it was like, holy shit, even through the silliness, through the emotional, like they're that band for me because of that extra emotional tie. So like, yeah, that One More Time album was great. I don't know if maybe it hasn't like sunk in long enough for me.
That's fair.
The One More Time
There's
song
some
and
misses on
video.
that. It's a bit long. Like it's like they added 3 songs into a bonus version. It's like 19 songs. I'm like, you could have had a 13, 14 track album and it still would have been like great.
Yeah.
But I still think it's
But I just
awesome.
for me, it's like, I don't know. And also I think because like Untitled has that nostalgia factor too for me.
For sure.
Of like that like prime pivotal age, like being 12, and like my cousin was 13, and like, you know, showing me that album and like us two listening it together, and like there's just so much of an emotional connection I have to that one album in particular, especially because it's that emotional album, and like I've always connected with the more emotional songs than the silly ones.
That's right.
So this is this whole pop punk album conversation
Blink
turned into a
conversation.
Blink conversation. But let's be real, it was always going to.
Yeah,
You
I
talk
knew
about
that you were
pop
gonna
punk,
have
it's always going to be a Blink
For sure.
conversation.
Yeah, so Enema was 3. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket was 1. We did your 2 and
We did my 3 and 2. I like. Yeah, there's so many like honorable mentions that I want to mention.
yeah.
but no.
Honestly, I have some honorable mentions too.
We'll go through a
Run
couple.
through 'em.
I'll give you one of my honorable mentions that I really wanted to add in here that I don't think a lot of people think of, and you probably wouldn't have had on your list. But Sugar Cult's Palm Trees and Power Lines.
Oh yeah, this one with Memory on it, right?
Yeah, I love Sugar Cult. Like, and they are to me the definition of a pop punk band. They lean more on the pop side.
Yeah.
They're very poppy, they're very catchy, they're very fun. And that's like, to me, Sugar Cult was always, it's maybe my brain associates this with them because of their name has sugar in it, but like they're like ear candy. You know, I can't get enough of it. They're ear candy.
I like that.
So that's definitely one of my honorable mentions for sure.
A few of mine, obviously Untitled was like just left off the list. Riot also left off. All Killer No Filler, kind of mentioned it. Did you have any other ones?
That's my main one that I had because a lot of them did make the list, and then I like feel like I don't know the years that a lot of these bands have come out with, but I'm like looking through my playlists of like 2000s pop punk, and that's where I messed up with Green Day too. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna put Dookie in there, but like I think that we should also put an honorable mention for Newfound Glory, Sticks and Stones.
Yes, that was one of mine too.
Yeah, those are my main honorable mentions.
A few other ones for me: The Young and the Hopeless, Good Charlotte, and then Page Avenue by Story of the Year, also a great album.
Yes. See, I didn't know if that would be more on like the emo side, so that's why I didn't put that on the list, because I was like, should I put a Story of the Year album on here? But like, and then it's borderlining too much. One
more super guilty pleasure album for me. Want by 303.
Yes, but would that be pop punk? That's like, more like electronic.
I know, that's why I was like, I'm gonna leave it off because it's not like truly pop punk, but like when I think of that album, I think of like going to Warped Tour to like hear them play alongside other pop punk bands. You know what I mean? All right, so you're
my number one. I'm just going to tell you after this conversation, it's not going to be a surprise. I have Blink self-titled. Yeah, Untitled.
I kind of figured. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that we hadn't already?
Not really. I feel like I kind of covered it. It's that they went from silly with Enema into Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, kind of bridging over and from silly to serious, and then they really finally like got there. And to me, I felt like that was Blink in prime form.
Okay.
So that's why like that was like the pinnacle. That was peak Blink for me. I don't think that they'll ever get to that point. I think that they like shot pretty damn close with One More Time. And that song on its own, like put the album aside. Yeah. You just have that song. Like that song, it could have been on Untitled. Yeah. Like it very well could have been. For sure. I don't know if it's the nostalgia factor. I don't know if it's because Tom's back. There was a lot of songs on that album that were really good, that were prime, that felt like they were prime Blink. But I think that album just hasn't had enough time to sit with me to sort of like marinate in that nostalgia factor as well that is Blink-182. So like I think it will always be underneath until I've sat with it for long enough that like, oh, okay, now
this is 20 years removed from all of these albums.
Exactly.
Versus one.
So in 10 years, and when we've had 10 years with that album, maybe it might be able to contend with the heavy hitters like Enema and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Yeah. You know what I mean? But for now, it's going to have to stay underneath because of context.
That's fair. Yep. Realistically, I should have the three of them at the top two and then One More Time just under. But I was kind of thinking down the road, I have such an affinity for it now. Mm-hmm. I can see it sticking with me for so long that it'll be in that top three.
But it's also not a 2000s album.
No, I know. Okay, my number two then. This is the one that I said I didn't think you were going to think of it because it's
Three Cheers.
No, it's not Three Cheers. It's Black Parade. I've always been Black Parade over Three Cheers.
Okay.
I think it's a perfect record. It's like the fusion of emo, pop punk. It's theatrical. It's fun. It's sad. It's like, it's got ballads. It's got energy. It's got everything.
You see, I don't know if I would really classify it as a pop punk album, which is also why I didn't put it in there. It feels more like a emo rock album.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got pop punk bangers on it. I don't know. It's tough. It's the same conversation with the Data.
Yeah.
They got pop punk songs on do you call it a pop punk album?
This is where we get into the whole genre defining conversation, even after how many conversations we've had about like, genre doesn't matter.
That's why I wanted to put it here.
Yeah. I mean, I respect the pick. Yeah, I respect it. I didn't put it in there because my brain kind of goes to that. Like at the end of the day,
the pop punk bands, Blink-182.
Yeah, for me, it was Blink-182. It was Sum 41. It was Green Day. It was Newfound Glory.
Yep.
Like those were the big ones.
I'm surprised you didn't have Newfound Glory on your list.
Yeah, they just basically almost like they just basically kind of got cut from there.
Gotcha.
Just because I liked Newfound Glory, but they didn't have as big of an impact on me growing up as the rest of these bands and albums have. Like it was like, okay. It was almost like feeling like you respect the pioneers. And like they felt like very much like I don't know, like they felt like a pre Blink 182 band. And they felt like they were always older than Blink 182 for me.
Yeah, I do get that vibe.
Like it was just, I don't know. And like whether they are or aren't, it's just that was the vibe that I had when I was going through the 2000s. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, there's Newfound Glory, but Newfound Glory just didn't connect, or like they felt like they were an older band than Blink, and it's probably because Blink were were childish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like they pitched themselves as like same kind of energy, but like mature.
Yeah, like they were like almost like too mature for my 12-year-old ass.
That's fair. Yeah, the other thing about the Black Parade, I feel like it was kind of in the same way that Day to Remember bridged the gap between pop punk and metalcore. My chem, it was like the bridge between pop punk and emo, or pop punk and post hardcore.
Yeah,
kind of like fusion. So I had to put it on here, anyways.
Yeah, and what's your number one?
My number one was Toy Patch. So Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Front to back, I think it's a perfect record. I have nothing. I wouldn't change a single song. It's got heart. It's got laughs. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but they start to get into that more like emo vibe that you would get at like Untitled. Yeah, for me, it's perfect.
I think that's a solid list. I think we both have really good lists.
I know.
And we have like the same bands and themes, but different albums. So I'm really curious how the final list is going to shape out and who's going to win with what. Who knows? We might just end up having a top 8 Blink 182 albums list.
At this point, yeah.
Like Blink and side projects.
All right. We will be right back then.
Yeah, let's discuss. With the amount of tears that were cried over coming to our final top 8 list, you'd think that we were ranking top 8 emo records and not pop punk records.
I mean, we all cried listening to these records anyways.
Let's be real. Yeah, this was a tough list to make because within the 2000s and pop punk world, there's just so many heavy hitting albums, so many heavy hitting bands. We had to make sure that we were including the bands that needed to be there, the albums that needed to be there, whether we had emotional connections to them or not. There's one album I had a really big emotional connection to that we cut from the list.
Me too.
Like,
okay.
yeah, we had to make sacrifices on this one to come to the final decision that would, be best for us and for you. So this is our final list. I feel defeated. I feel like I sound defeated, you really but it's actually like a solid list.
Yeah,
like I'm really happy with this.
There's not a wrong answer with all the albums we talked about. Any of them could be in this final top 8, but at number 8, we decided to go with No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls, which you recognize was, even if you're not the biggest Simple Plan fan, this record was an iconic pop punk record.
Yeah, and I think we've had this conversation on the podcast before too. Like, I'm not the biggest Simple Plan song. Then a Simple Plan fan. And
don't increase 21.
And don't mistake that for, me saying that I don't like them, because I do like Simple Plan, but I was never like their biggest fan. But with that being said, this album is an iconic pop punk album. It's still, talked about and touted as, one of the biggest albums from that time. It connected with so many people. It was an important album for the 2000s pop punk world. And so we definitely needed to have it on there.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. Number 7, we put Does This Look Infected?
Yes, we needed a Sum 41 album on here because I honestly think that Sum 41 are a part of the big 3. Like Sum 41 are on pop punk's Mount Rushmore.
I would agree with that statement.
So whether, with the conversation that we had about how they have like, some of the best singles, but their albums as a whole flow, like maybe not as good as their full set list. You need a Sum 41 album. They need representation on this list because they're a Mount Rushmore pop punk band, and Does This Look Infected is the only one that made either of our lists. So we're going with it.
Exactly. At number 6, then we have Riot, the sophomore album from Paramore, of course.
Yeah, we debated on this one because I think we both have different tastes with Paramore albums, and I think everybody has their own favorite Paramore album if
Yeah.
you're a Paramore fan.
While
No
I
matter
love
what.
while I love Brand New Eyes more, this is the pop punk record. This is like their pop punk record. Like it was one of the ones that I first thought of when I was making the list. It just I went back and revisited it.
When you think about Paramore,
you
like
think of Misery Business.
yeah,
that video,
it's the first
that-
thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Immediately, if you say, pick a Paramore album, even if it's not your favorite album, like the first thing that comes to most people's heads is Riot and that album cover and, Misery Business, all of that. So that's why, like, it just for the scene and for what it did for
Gotta
the
give it the credit.
band. Yeah, that's the album that we're going with Paramore.
Yep. Number 5 from Under the Cork Tree, Fall Out Boy.
It's the Fall Out Boy album. What can I say?
It is the Fall Out Boy album. If you're listening, just play the album.
I'm good with their hits.
I know. me
I'm good
too.
with their hits.
They have a great set, but I don't know that they've ever played this in full, so it'd be cool if they did. Number 4, American Idiot, Green Day.
It's not Dookie, but it's good.
Well, if we were
Dookie's not
doing
from the
best
2000s.
90s pop punk records, that's at the top.
I don't know how many 90s pop punk records there are.
No, that's why I was like, we won't do that one.
Yeah, no. We'll do a 2010s.
Yeah. All right. So if you couldn't guess, our top 3 are obviously Blink records.
We got rid of Boxcar Racer, which I think that's like the one that I was the saddest to get rid of.
Yeah.
But kind of going over things, like we needed to include Simple Plan in there. And then the Blink records, I think, stand out more of like an impactful general album for the general population. Whereas the Boxcar album, I think, has more of like a niche following and like a niche connection to it. And it's definitely important and has some emotional songs in there. But, Blink is Blink. Like Blink are the kings of pop punk. No one will ever be able to take that from them.
I
They're
know.
the Michael Jackson of pop punk.
Yes.
And I want to say something I'm not going to say.
Now I'm intrigued.
But yeah, they're the kings of pop punk. And let's be real, all 3 albums we're always going to be the top 3. It's just a matter of where we put them. So what did we decide on for number 3?
Number 3, we gave that one to Enema of the State.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Enema purists are going to be mad at this one. But like, let's be real, Enema put them on the map
Yep.
for what they were and blew them up. And like, yes, it's a perfect album, but like, once again, coming back to like, I'm sorry, but I can skip What's My Age Again.
I can't. It's wild that you're using that as the example because that is not the song that I can skip.
All the
There's a
small
few.
things.
You're gonna what? You're
All
gonna
the-
skip that one too?
I'll skip that one too.
What the heck?
Because they're the 2 big singles
Yeah,
that have just
but-
gotten so. Don't like. Here's the thing: if I went to a Blink 182 concert and they didn't play either of those songs, I would be pissed.
Yeah,
But also, if it's coming up on a playlist and I'm not in the mood for it, I'll skip it because I've heard it 10 million times. But anything off of Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, and then anything off of Untitled, I'm not skipping. So that's why I'm
That's
like,
fair.
mm,
the last few songs on the record kind of lose me towards the end as well. Mutt, Wendy's Clear, and then Anthem. I always like they're good songs. There
I like
isn't
Wendy's
a bad
Clear.
Blink song here. It's just like, yeah, I don't know.
It's just it's the immature side of Blink, and then Take Off Your Pants and Jacket is that like that in
They
between.
did have a bit of the emo relatable side too on like Adam's song though. Like that's
Mhm.
also
Yeah,
they're dabbling in it. You know what I mean? But I feel like the next records they just like honed that sound. They were like,
Mhm.
this is our big, pop off album, and now we're just gonna do it a bit better.
it defined them, and then they got to like define and refine.
I like that.
So it was just that's why Enema is number 3
And then number 2
is Untitled.
Number 1 then is Take Off Your Pants and Jacket.
And that was our argument of, how are we going to land on picking these 3 Blink albums? Because arguably each of them can be number 1, but we kind of picked that like immature era as being the bottom, because you're not always in the mood for that immaturity, but then the Untitled, while it's my favorite, and I didn't want to give up this fight, it was also like the most mature album, and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, because it was right in the middle.
Oh, it was a happy medium.
Yeah, it was a happy medium. So we're just going to kind of like weigh everything out and put the medium one up top. So that's the thinking behind this one.
So I won
You won the battle, but not the war. I know I am still right. In the collective fight, you have won, but I know my opinion is superior.
Said every music fan ever.
Where is my fedora, milady?
No matter what we put here, we weren't going to be wrong. Any of these three records, any of the records on this list altogether are great.
I think every single record on this top 8 list can be argued as a number one.
Yeah.
So there's really no wrong answer. It came down to our personal opinion getting in the way. But like I said, I mean, people out there could be arguing for No Pads as their number one album or the number one album. And you know what? I'm sure they can make a very strong argument for it. And I would be inclined to hearing that argument too, because I'm like, that's the cool thing about hosting a podcast and about talking and engaging with your community and talking to people is like you get differing opinions and there's nothing wrong with that. Like you engage in good conversation. I want to hear the arguments as to why you think an album on this list should be number one or an album that we didn't even mention should be number one.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, that's another episode of the Top 8 podcast, the Top 8 Blink-182, pop punk albums of the 2000s. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Please remember to share this with your friends, to like it, to subscribe, to leave us a review,
really
leave
helps
a comment. Yeah,
if you're listening on Spotify, please leave 5 stars. That also helps a ton.
Yeah, it helps with the ranking. It helps share everything. And, we, at the end of the day, are doing this for the love of it, to share our love of music and to share our love of music in conversation with you. So help us help you.
We'll see you next week.